welcome to this week's Ask Charlie, and this week we have got a Q&A. I love doing Q&As, and it's been a little while since we have done one. I asked on my Instagram stories and I've got some great questions. So here goes. How do you build trust and confidence with a new horse? I think time. And don't rush it, but time spent on the ground with them is just as important as in the saddle. So handling them, talking to them. I know this might sound ridiculous, but I have conversations with the horses, brushing them, just being around them. I actually really bonded with Santana when she had her injury at New Year because she had 3 weeks box rest. So I was spending a lot of time looking after her in her stable with her, and I think that actually really, from something negative, it actually really helped our relationship. And she could trust me and vice versa. And we really, really bonded then. But Coco spends a lot of time on the ground with her. And groundwork is really important, particularly when we were having problems loading her. We had an expert that came, Miles, Alec Miles, and particularly when we had problems loading her, we had an expert, Alec Miles, come, and he was like, the groundwork is really, really important. So leading her in hand and, building up trust and respect is hugely, hugely important. And then that relays into the riding as well. If they trust you and you've got a really good relationship, they're going to look after you when you're in the saddle as well. So it is really important. The next question, do you ever think you will move from your home? If so, where to? We've looked over the years at different options. We've looked at moving to Scotland, we've looked at moving to Devon, but actually we love Sussex. And so I think if we were going to be moving, we would stay in the area. Story behind your wedding dress. Okay, I did see this and I have brought in a couple of pictures, and actually it's made me realise I need to clean the silver, so I'm going to be doing that. I don't know if you can see because of the glare. If I put it like that, maybe you can. So I had quite a full veil, and you can just about see my wedding dress poking through while Si and I are signing the register. And I've got a full length picture here of my dress, which is in the attic, and I actually haven't tried it on since we got married. Now, I did a fashion degree. Fashion was my first love. I thought I was going to be a fashion designer. That was something that I was really passionate about. And I designed and wore all of my evening wear for quite a few years. In fact, there's another one here. It's quite a grainy picture, but that... there. That was the night of the millennium, and we went to a party at some friends, and the dress underneath the coat that I'm wearing was a dress I designed, and the coat I was wearing was actually my A-level design project. So I designed my dress and I had it made for me. It wasn't something that I wanted to make myself, to be perfectly honest. So I had it made, and it had these wonderful sort of flaps, let's call them flaps. They're sort of huge pleats going across, and that gave the bodice really beautiful shape. And then the front part was straight, but then I had a really full skirt, and actually the design came from my side saddle days. I wanted a really full bustle at the back, but I wanted a really elegant, sophisticated shape from the front. So I got that, and I loved it. I felt wonderful wearing it. My veil was made by a very, very dear friend, and it's just very special. So thank you for asking that question. Would you ever do a day in the life vlog? I love your videos. I've got 2 day in the life videos, which I will leave linked down below, and you can watch those. And if you'd like more, then let me know in the comments and I can do another day in the life vlog for you all. I'd love to see your recommendations for walking shoes / boots, please. La Chameau do the best walking boots I've ever had, and I will pop a picture on the screen here. My walking boots I've had since Si and I first met. we did a lot. We don't do as much anymore, sadly. A lot of walking, particularly in Scotland and Ireland, hill walking, and they are the best boots, and they are still going strong. The children have been wearing them on recent expeditions. Coco took them for her last sort of school whatever that she was doing, but they are the best walking boots. I love your style in your clothes and home. Is there a home tour? Kate, thank you for saying that. Probably not a home tour. The children don't really want me sharing their bedrooms. I've got to be quite respectful, and so I share snippets, and I will try to share more over, I don't know, the coming months, and I will do my best, but I have to be quite respectful of their privacy. How did you end up moving to Sussex? Thank you, Molly, for asking. Si had moved to Sussex. He actually grew up, his early days when he was a child were in Sussex. He was at prep school in Chichester, and he had lots of friends that had moved out of London to Sussex, and he moved out, and we met in London, but he was currently living down here. So his business and his life was established here. So when we met, it was just sort of a natural progression that I would move in and move to Sussex and be with him here. So that's how it happened. Favourite places to visit in England? I'm visiting from Australia next week. Oh my goodness, it depends where you're going. I mean, I love the South Coast. London is an absolute must. Bath is a beautiful city. York is a really, really beautiful city. I love Scotland. It depends where you're going, so that's quite a hard question, but I think you need to see the coast, and you need to do at least London, or Bath or Winchester. The cathedral towns are really beautiful, so Salisbury, Cheltenham, Bath, Bristol. It just depends. It's quite a hard one. What have you planned in the kitchen garden for spring and summer? I'm keeping it quite simple this year, Laura. Potatoes, carrots, beans, that sort of thing. We've got a busy year, and I don't want to overface myself and feel overwhelmed. We've also got a few holidays. We're traveling quite a bit, and there's a lot going on, so I'm going to keep it quite simple. How are the hens? I will insert a little snippet of the hens. They are really well, thank you. They are all laying, and lots of fresh eggs on a daily basis. So we're very, very lucky for that. Do you have any fun trips planned for the summer? Yes, we do, Laura, which is really, really exciting. First up, we have got a trip in May half term to Corsica with Corsican Places. It's actually a work trip for me. They have gifted us the holiday, and we are going as a family, and I'm really, really excited. I travelled in Corsica, in 1999. I spent about 3 weeks there, and I absolutely loved it. So I'm really excited to go and explore and take the children. Archer's really hoping that it's going to be windy enough for him to do some surfing, and it's just going to be a really, really lovely family holiday. So we're really looking forward to that. And then we have got a trip to France and a trip to Turkey. So a year of lots of travel and adventure, which I'm looking forward to. What are some of your top tips for children and parents who are getting braces? Just embrace it. Embrace it. I didn't mean to say that, but I had braces 3 times, so I just had to completely and utterly embrace it. And I didn't have my train tracks off until I was, I think, 19. And then in my 30s, I had Invisalign, and my teeth had moved, and so I needed to have Invisalign just to correct things. I have problems with my bite. It's actually linked to the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that I have, and it does cause overcrowding in the mouth. So I had 5 adult teeth taken out, and I had my teeth all pulled forward. Then I started having back problems, so they decided it was that. So then they pulled them all back again. I had headgear, I had all sorts of things. So I think you just literally have to embrace it, and don't care what people think. Just go for it, and know that it's just a phase. Like, it will end. just a time in your life and then it will be over. But if you've got a sore mouth, Bonjela and salt washers and taking like some paracetamol or something if it's painful, because it can be a little bit painful, but the more you wear them, the better. Claire has asked, could you talk about the changes you made to the house when you moved in, building, etc.? We changed everything here. The house was actually quite ugly, to be perfectly honest. It ticked all of our boxes, but it was really ugly. And we lived in it for 3 years while we were applying for planning permission and working out what to do. I think it's really important to live in a space before you make big changes. And it's listed, it's in an area of outstanding national, it's in an area of outstanding natural beauty and a national park. So we were quite restricted. That makes planning more complicated, I should say, rather than we were quite restricted. We invited the planners to come over and to meet us here and to look at what our ideas were. And they were really understanding, and we got planning permission and we changed every wall downstairs. Every window was replaced. We re-landscaped the garden. We put in new sewage, new plumbing, new wiring, the whole lot. It was gutted. And I didn't document any of it. I was pregnant with Gus when we were doing the building project. So I was here every day. I managed the project, but I didn't take photos, and it was so ugly before I didn't take photos. So I've got the original estate agent's details, but that's about it. So, there are photos, but they're photos like pre-smartphones. So they're on a camera and on a computer that I need to get out and get the photos off and get them printed. It's old school. So yes, it was a huge project. It took a year. It was mega, but worth it. Do you have any favourite YouTube channels that you follow? That's a really great question. I don't have that much time to watch YouTube videos, and I never watched YouTube before I started my channel, which was a serious error. I should have done. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I went into it completely blind. But I probably started a few years ago. I thought I need to embrace this and see how to do it properly. I watch from time to time Lydia Millen and Josie. I love Josie and Lydia. And also Kylie Flavel. She lives in Italy. Her videos are so beautifully filmed and edited. That's not the right word, you know what I mean. She's super talented and her channel is really gorgeous. But I don't spend too much time watching other people's YouTube videos because I just don't have that much time. But there are some wonderful creators out there, and I think YouTube is a phenomenal place. I love my being here, and I love you all. You're all really supportive and really encouraging, and for that I'm hugely grateful. Who was the first person to call you Charlie instead of Charlotte? My mother actually called me Charles. She was convinced when she was pregnant with me that I was a boy, and so I was going to be called Charles Moray, as in Moray, the Moray Firth up in Scotland. My parents met up there, and it was a place that they were really fond of. They lived up there when they were first married, and so I was Charles Moray. And when I arrived, I was a girl, and they had to rethink very quickly. So they went for the female equivalent of Charles, and I was Charlotte. And then my middle name is Diana. My godmother is Diana. So the Princess Charlotte is Princess Charlotte Diana, and I'm Charlotte Diana too. And I have never really been Charlotte. I was always Charlie. I still have a few home friends, really old friends that call me Charles. I am a real tomboy. Although I did ballet, I did horses, I was always climbing a tree, I was always mucky, and yeah, there is a real tomboy in me. So I think Charlie suited me better than Charlotte. I was only known as Charlotte when I worked in the last job I had in London when I met Simon. I had my interview, and of course on my CV I had my name, Charlotte was on there because it's more formal. And also sometimes I would arrive to things and they were expecting a boy, and that did cause a few problems. I have a few funny stories of incidences that happened when, can Charlie and Tom come and stay for the weekend? Yeah, sure. And they're put in the same room, and then suddenly I rock up with Tom as his girlfriend, and the parents are very old fashioned, and they had to suddenly make up a bed for me. And that was one funny incident that springs to mind. And yeah, my boss, I got the job. He offered me the job, and I said, by the way, it's Charlie. And he said, no. In Chelsea, you are Charlotte. And that was that. So I was Charlotte for 3 years working in that company, but I'm not a Charlotte. I mean, I love it. It's a beautiful name, but I've always been a Charlie. Any budgeting advice? Yes. And I was talking about this on a TikTok live the other day. I think if you are trying to save, and actually it's just, even if you're not trying to save, it's a really good idea to pop some money aside each month. And so I have a separate bank account, which I don't use. I don't have that card in my wallet. I have the card, but I don't carry it around with me. So there's no temptations. And I put money into that bank account. So it's a safety net, or if there's an unexpected something, I've got some money there. So that would be my top tip. But there are much better money experts out there than me. Advice for a 25-year-old woman. Oh, Fiona, I wish I didn't worry so much when I was in my 20s. I was really worried what people thought. I was worried about fitting in. I was worried about everything. I don't know if it was just me or whether, you can relate to that. I think it's important to find something that you love work-wise. And if you're not loving it, then maybe think about changing. But just don't worry too much about the small stuff. And I think if you're happy and confident in yourself, then everything else will fall into place. So it's about learning about having a good relationship with yourself, and then other relationships, whether that's sexual or friendship wise, will fall into place, as will work. And I think that's really important, whereas I was just too worried about all sorts of stuff. And it wasn't until I started having self-confidence in myself that things started to fall into place. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm a Portuguese subscriber and I love your videos. I was wondering, what's your favourite novel? I am going to go and get it. Okay, I'm back with my 2 most favourite books that I think I have ever read. And this is going to show the different sides to my personality. So the first one is Lonesome Dove. My dentist gave me this book, and it's his favourite book. It's phenomenal. It's about cowboys and Indians, basically. If you read only one Western novel in your life, read this one. This epic journey that will change their lives forever. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal book. I loved it, and this book will stay in here forevermore. It's a very thick book with very small type, but don't be put off. It's incredible. And then the other book, I actually found this in Mum's house, and she'd written her name in the front of it, and I picked it up, and I found it very emotional. I loved this book. It's called My Last Duchess by Daisy Goodwin, and it's a really, really lovely read. And this is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I'll leave them linked down below, but wonderful, wonderful books, both of those. And I think they show the different sides to my personality. Yeah, I mean, I love an adventure. I love, and that Lonesome Dove was such a page turner. And then I found The Last Duchess emotional. What you eat in a day. I find this a really tricky one, because all of our bodies are different. It depends on what we're doing. It depends on how active we are. My diet will vary from day to day as to whether I've done a workout, whether I have done a long walk, whether I've ridden. And I tend to listen to my body and what it needs and what it wants. I don't just eat for the sake of eating, if that makes sense. And I think what I eat in a day videos can be quite damaging, if that makes sense. I haven't had food issues myself personally, but I grew up with a couple of really close friends that did. And I think those sorts of videos aren't very helpful. So I think having a really good, nutritious, balanced diet. I'm passionate about eating well. I'm passionate about seasonal food. I'm passionate about cooking from scratch. And I listen to my body. Like this morning, I got up early, I did a workout. I've had a really large bowl of my homemade granola with Greek yogurt and berries. And I will probably have, I don't know, I might have a poached egg and some spinach and some toast for lunch, because it's just me here at lunchtime today. And then we will all sit down as a family and eat something this evening, and that will involve some meat or some fish. But if I haven't done a workout, I might have breakfast a bit later. It just depends. So I think what I eat in a day videos aren't great. I've been asked about it and to film it so many times, but I just don't think it's a good thing, because I think people compare, and that's not great. And hopefully that makes sense. How to combat anxiety, especially when staying away from home. Oh, that's really, really difficult. I think finding something that brings you comfort and distracts you is really important. And our mind is a really powerful tool, and we can take ourselves to an emotional place if we overthink something. So if we're anxious about being away and we think about it a lot, then you're going to be more anxious. If you flip your mind and focus on the positive things and write 3 things each day that you're grateful for being away, and things that you're learning and experiencing, and focus on all of those positives, we can reframe our mind and how we think. I think if you're feeling really anxious, it's really important to breathe properly and to control your breathing, and breathe in and breathe out slowly. And then listen to a podcast that makes you happy. Listen to some music that makes you happy. Not sad, not emotional, not emotive, just happy, upbeat music. Smile at people. Smiling at people and having a conversation makes a huge, huge difference, and is really, positive and has a really good effect. So hopefully those are helpful tips for you. What daily SPF face cream do you use? I will leave it on the screen here, but it's probably the 5th or 6th tube that I have bought of it. That is how much I love it. It's ultraviolet, and I will leave it linked here and in the description down below, because it's excellent. And I find it a really good base. I can pop that on, let it sink in for just a couple of minutes, and then put my makeup on top. So I know that I've got my SPF on. And then they also do a spray, so you can top it up throughout the day if it's really hot and if you're outside a lot. Favourite hair products, please, for fine hair. Well, I've got really fine hair, and I have recently discovered, well, in the last, 6 months actually, Living Proof full range. It's expensive, but it's really, really good, and it's made a huge difference to my hair. And I use their shampoo and conditioner, and then I use their root lifting spray, and then they've got another, I can't remember what it's called, but I'll leave them all linked down below. But their full range, Living Proof full range, I am finding wonderful at the moment, and I'm using it every day because I love it so much. Best advice for decluttering sentimental items. Oh, Amy, it's hard, and I'm not very good at it myself. I think if it's not useful, if you don't want to use it and you don't want to look at it, but you feel like you have to keep it, like why? Ask yourself, why do you feel like you have to keep it? Do you really, or are you keeping it to please somebody else? And if you're doing that, then maybe it's time to have a rethink and rehome. Don't please other people by keeping things, because if it's not going to bring you joy and it's not going to be useful and you don't love it, then it's time to get rid of it. That's my best bit of advice. And the final question is actually about Simon. I'd love to know more about Simon's family and his business and background. So Simon set up his fish business about 30 years ago, approximately 30 years ago, can't actually remember. He used to work in the meat business and he saw a gap in the market for fish, and so he set up his business, and he he knows a lot about fish. He's been doing it for a long time. He travels a lot with it, and it's very varied. His early days, he grew up in Sussex. He was at prep school in Sussex, and then his parents actually moved to the Channel Islands. His father is a music composer, and he was a bit of a party animal, so he was quite late to marry. He hadn't been married and didn't have children before we met, but we met and married when he was in his mid-40s, and we now have a wonderful family. And just after you watch, the following day after this video comes out, we will have been engaged for 18 years. Simon proposed to me 18 years ago at Lourdes on a Catholic pilgrimage. Neither of us are Catholic, we're both C of E, but a very, very close friend of Simon's was involved in the Order of Malta. He was a knight of the Order of Malta, or is a knight of the Order of Malta, and Simon started going to Lourdes with him. And the Order of Malta this might not be completely accurate. Forgive me if it's not, because I'm not Catholic, and this is how I think it is. The Order of Malta take every year people from care homes or are being looked after at home, to give their carers some respite for a week, and they go to Lourdes, and they're looked after by the volunteers from the Order of Malta. And I had the privilege, huge privilege, to go on one of these trips with Simon. And it's one of the reasons why I said yes to going on a date with him, because he was older and I was a little bit wary. And he just mentioned that and this was a year before, I'd known him for quite a long time, before we had our first date. He just mentioned that he was going to Lourdes on this pilgrimage, and I said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm going for a week and looking after people. And that made me sort of listen, and I was like, well, that's intriguing. You must be a really decent guy if you give up a week of your life to go and look after people. And so when he came back and asked me on a date, I said yes, because I just thought he was a really good guy, and I was right. He is a really good guy, and I'm very, very lucky. And on that trip that we went on together to Lourdes, he asked me to be his wife, and that was 18 years ago, and it feels like it was yesterday. It was a very, very special day. In fact, I'll go and get the pictures and share them with you quickly. I don't think I've shared this with you before, but Simon's best friend made this for us as an anniversary present. And this is the terrace that Simon proposed to me on, La Terrasse in Lourdes. And this is us. I'll give you a close-up. That is me dressed as a nurse, and my husband looking very, very youthful. And this chap was called Michael, and Michael lived in Horsham, and he was a really lovely man, and I got to push him in his wheelchair and chat to him a lot. And yeah, that is when Simon proposed to me. So a long time ago, and many adventures and ups and downs. So I'm slightly out of breath. That lives in our bathroom. I've just run up and grabbed it off the wall and brought it down to share it with you. But I am very lucky. He's a wonderful chap. So that's a little bit more about Simon and our proposal story, which I wasn't going to share with you, but it seems totally appropriate that I have. Anyway, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you on Friday with a new vlog, and in the meantime, I'm sending lots of love.